Hi everybody, welcome to Sunya and welcome to the Environment High Yielding series. Okay, so now we'll be seeing the Terminologies Part 2. I hope you've already seen Terminology Part 1, wherein we have discussed very important terms related from the environment, specifically which can be asked in the Prelims 2023. Okay, so now we are continuing. This is the Part 2 of that. Okay, so I'll start with the first term. The first term is Winterkill. Okay. So if you actually try to break this term down, you can understand that winter and then there is kill. Alright. So what it simply means, and if you can see from the image, that in winter kill, basically a lot of the fishes, etc., they die. Fine. So what exactly happens? It is a loss of fish in the winters, okay, because in the winters, especially in these lake or water bodies, there is a lack of oxygen which happens. So because of that, because of lack of oxygen, oxygen is less, the lake is hypoxic. Hypoxic means less oxygen, which does not give enough oxygen. And why? The reason is simple. Let's say because of the frozen, let's say the ice or this like ice caps. Because of that, oxygen overall availability is less. Okay. Of course, in these winter conditions, you have less of sunlight available. So the basic processes are not able to happen, which leads to something known as a winter kill. A similar to a simple term to understand, but can be asked in your exam, so you should know. Okay. Another term is ghost fishing. Okay. So we will see what is ghost fishing, and then we will see what are the consequences of ghost fishing. Okay. So basically, what is done for fishing, one uses a lot of fishing nets. Okay. And after the fishing activity is done, many times these fishing nets are not taken back. Okay, so as a result, the fishing continues to happen even without the fishing being supervised. So even in unsupervised cases, the fishing happens. Now this is harmful. Why? Because a lot of these marine aquatic animals get entangled because of that. Okay, in this ghost, like this is known as ghost in fishing. Okay. And this leads to a loss of biodiversity overall. So it is said that one needs to, like the humans, they have to intervene. They have to catch hold of these abandoned fishing nets. That is one. Second, one of the harmful causes of ghost fishing is that it leads to death of coral reefs as well. Now in the last session, we had seen ways to restore coral reefs. So also this is one thing which we need to do. So this destructive ghost fishing cycle is something which needs to be stopped, okay, because this is a big source of marine plastic pollution, okay, and a result of this, a lot of let's say fishes, sharks, whales, they die, okay, that is entanglement. Now which is why when you read about turtles, or let's say olive ridley turtles, a lot of the governments focus on TEDs, turtle exclusion devices, so that they do not get entangled in the fishing nets. So that is one thing. Basically, with respect to ghost fishing, you should know, okay, it is a deadliest form of marine plastic, okay, that is one thing. Entangling these mammals, sea turtles, etc., slow and painful death, okay, and it also damages coral reefs, etc., so very harmful for the marine habitat. That is ghost fishing. Okay, third term now we'll see. Now two terms are there, cloud forest and second is microforest. Okay. Now why this term? Again I'll tell you, because forests in general are an important theme. So Forest Rights Act, okay, sustainable management of forests, and for example this year there was a question on urban forest management that was related to Miyawaki technique. Okay. So we'll see both these terms. Cloud forests were also in news and microforest were also in news. I will start with microforest first. Okay. So this is an innovative method to set up forests in small regions. Okay, so you will utilize less space, hence the name micro. Denser plantation and vegetation, almost similar to what we see in Miyawaki technique. Okay, in that there is a small area in which you plant like trees, etc., okay, in very high density. Okay, that is one. Now related to microforests, there is a Harit IICAR initiative, so you can understand both the terms. With Harit, you can understand green, and IICAR, you can think of income tax department. Why? This is there for increasing greenery and creating Microforest, this was also in the news. This is why I've taken this term up. So microforests, similar, okay, micro in small regions. One is creating forest, one is doing the plantations. Now you have to tell me, with respect to plantations and specifically forest plantations, what are the acts which are responsible for ensuring forest plantations? Please write that down in the comment section. Okay. Now moving to cloud forest. Now if you see the cloud forest, you can see in the montane regions you can find them. So basically cloud forests are found in the tropical mountain regions. Now they were in news because of two things. Okay, I'll tell you the context also behind it. Okay, so and then we will see the distribution etc. of these forests. So basically they were, one thing was these financial bonds for the cloud forests. That was the first thing that was in news. Okay, second, cloud forest asset financing, okay, which is a nature based solution overall. So it was again a method to first of all value these forests and then have an economic valuation of that, which can be used to raise funds and money. Okay, that was one part of it. But now we'll see, first of all, this is the map highlighting the distribution of them. So I told you these are tropical montane forests. Okay, so that's number one thing that you should know about them. Okay, second thing, of course, when these are tropical mountain regions, so they have a lot of rainfall. Secondly, because these are mountainous regions, they have a lot of condensation activity which is going on here. Okay, a lot of condensation activity, like, which is why you see these kind of cloud forests. Okay, so that is also one part here. Okay, so you have a lot of mist and a cloud cover in these regions. Fine. Now these cloud forests etc. often like have a lot of mosses in it. Okay, hence these are also known as mosses forest. Okay, now think of static, think of ecological succession. In that you discuss about lichens and mosses. Okay, those are the pioneer species. They can grow even without soil. Okay, even without soil the lichens can come up. What are lichens? Symbiotic association of algae and fungus. Fine. And even more differentiated is mosses. So these have a lot of mosses, that is also there. And only 1% of the global woodland consists of these wood forests. Okay, that is one. And even here there are only 25 countries which house around 90% of these clouded forests. I'm covering this in slightly more detail because of these two specific current affairs. Okay, so that is why we are doing it. Okay, so that is there. Okay, and of course because of these regions they provide a lot of ecological services to the regions. For example, you will find a lot of hydroelectric projects. They also like are useful for the people who are living in these regions because of this. Fine. So they have a lot of mosses. Fine, that is also something you need to know. And then there are these dedicated bonds. So that is an initiative known as Cloud Forest 25 Investment Initiative. Okay, so that is also one thing that one needs to know. And of course, because these are found in mountainous regions, so they are found in at least some elevations, and that elevations is around 3000 to around 10,000 feet. In some cases it can also be in lesser like regions, but still that is the overall. So because these are tropical mountain forests, so found in at some elevations, abundant in mosses. Okay, found in limited to only 25 odd countries, and only 1% of the overall global woodland consists of these forests. Okay, and two news, one was related to the evaluation about the financing, and second is the Cloud Forest 25 Investment Initiative, which is also in the news. So both these things you should know. One is cloud forest and the other is microforest, and this Harit Ayakar initiative. Okay, and there is again an extension of Miyawaki, especially in India. So Miyawaki, if you see Bangalore, if you see Andhra Pradesh, Chennai, and in other parts of North India, in many cases we are utilizing Miyawaki technique. What is Miyawaki technique? It is there for urban forests. Okay, creating urban forests. It is very fast. It is helping in more biodiversity. Even very dense. Okay, helps in utilizing the local people, more participative in nature. And very important thing in Miyawaki forests, is that you have forests of different sizes, okay, so which are there. Now what happens because of this, let's say this is sun, the sunlight is not, because of dense canopy upward region, the sunlight is not able to reach down, which prevents the growth of weeds, okay. The weeds are not needed, like they do not grow. So after 3 years, this does not require maintenance constant, okay. So they become self-sustaining after 3 years. This is also very important component, okay. So they require less of the tending and maintenance operations, okay. So a few things, that is Miyawaki, but Miyawaki has been transformed to meet our requirements. So this happened in Telangana's like Harita Hariharam, okay. This uses a Yadari model, okay. So here it is Japanese technique Miyawaki is used, which is mixed with the localized techniques. For example, they use cow dung also and urine, etc., to improve the fertility of the soil, okay. So let's say you get this Yadadri model, okay, pardon me, this should be Yadadri model, etc. So that is related to Miyawaki being applied to the Indian conditions, okay. And a different kind of pilot projects are also being carried out, okay. So that is also something you need to be aware about, okay. Cloud forests, micro forests, then the cloud forest 25 investment initiative, Yadadri model, Miyawaki, okay. Now the next term is Trophic Cascade, okay. This term is easy for those of you who understand that there is a concept of food chain, okay. So in food chain, what you will have, let's say you have grasses like these are our plants, these are the primary producers, eaten up by herbivores, primary consumers, eaten up by, let's say, snake, secondary consumers, eaten up by, let's say, hawk, which is the apex predator or the tertiary consumer, okay. This is the flow of energy which happens. Now in Trophic Cascade, what happens, let's say if we remove this, so because of any of the activities, any element is removed, the entire chain gets disturbed. Now imagine if this hawk or the eagle is removed, what will happen? You will have more of snakes. If there are more snakes, they will eat more of these, let's say, rabbits, and then etc. Then you will have a lot of grass, okay. So or let's say if you remove this, so even this will substantially expand and the whole food chain would collapse at some point of time, okay. So that is known as Trophic Cascade, fine. So this is what it simply means. It is an ecological phenomena. So if you add anything, if you add a predator, if you remove anything, okay, so this will cause a disruption through the entire food chain, okay. So the entire ecosystem is disbalanced, which is why, let's say when you add a predator or when you remove a predator from a particular food chain, it will have disastrous consequences. This term is known as Trophic Cascade, okay. Now what is cascade? Cascade means a cascading effect, okay. It is similar to a, let's say if you have seen domino, let's say these are dominoes. If one domino falls, everything falls, fine. So that is known as a domino effect. So this Trophic Cascade leads to a cascading or a domino effect across the entire food chain, fine. So this term is known as Trophic Cascade, okay. It is used a lot of times when we discuss climate change and when we discuss biodiversity loss. So even this term can be asked from you, what is Trophic Cascade, okay. It results in dramatic changes in ecosystem structure and nutrient cycling, fine. Now again, two more terms in the news, and I will also connect it to other terms. One is shallow ecology, one is deep ecology. What is ecology? If you have logy with any word, it simply means the study. Ecology is the study of the interactions between the living organisms, that is the biotic component, with the abiotic component. The interaction is known as ecology, okay. Now there are two terms, one is shallow ecology, one is deep ecology, okay. Shallow ecology considers humans as the most intelligent species and humans beings to be at the center of everything, okay. So that is shallow ecology. This is also known as anthropocentrism, that human anthropos is at the center, anthropocentrism, fine. Deep ecology simply means that nature is at the core, okay. That is known as biocentrism, that also I'll talk about later on in this very lecture. So shallow ecology talks about very superficial level changes. Okay, so let's say we are wearing, let's say, green jeans or green trousers because a lot of different companies like textile companies or clothing based footwear, different companies, they say, okay, we've become green. They might not exactly be green, or they might have not done very substantial changes, but they are advertising themselves to be green, which in fact is also linked to a term known as greenwashing, which was also asked this year by UPSC. Okay, greenwashing is giving the false impression that a product or a company is very environmentally sustainable or responsible, while in reality it might not be. Okay, so that is linked to shallow ecology, wherein we think humans being to be the most important species, and we take very superficial steps to save nature. Okay, the second is deep ecology. This considers everything, like every part of nature has an intrinsic value. Hence, we have to save everything and not just one set of species. Fine. Now, this concept of shallow, or basically the deep ecology, was given by a philosopher, okay, known as Arne Naes. Okay, Arne Naes gave this basic idea of deep ecology way back in 1973. Okay, and this was in the news in the current affairs this year. So, if you get a question, for example, this term was created by, let's say, the US president or the Indian president, or was spoken in COP27, etc., that would of course be false. So understand what is shallow ecology, understand what is deep ecology. Okay, shallow ecology leads to things like greenwashing, okay, which creates a false advertisements or false impressions, right? So that is also something one can know about, and this concept was given by Arne Naes, a Norwegian philosopher, way back in 1973. Okay, so that is known as deep ecology. Now, I was referring to this term biocentrism. Now, why is this important this year? Because Supreme Court, in the recent case that is related to Great Indian Bustards, highlighted the principle of biocentrism. Okay, the name of the case is M.K. Ranjit Singh versus Union of India. Okay, even the name of the case can be asked. You might have seen this year's GS2 mains paper. The first question is about the constitutionality of environmental laws. Okay, in that they have mentioned some Supreme Court cases. So even the cases should be known to you. So biocentrism means bio at the center. This is different from anthropocentrism, where human beings are at the center. Here we respect all the natural, let's say, elements or organisms, because all of them have an intrinsic value. So biocentrism, okay, will align with deep ecology, okay, not shallow ecology. Biocentrism principle was spoken about in Great Indian Bustards case. Okay, and basically the case was that in Rajasthan, there were, in the electricity transmission lines, these bustards, they were getting caught and they were dying. They were dying because of that. Okay, so that was there. Now what was said, that Great Indian Bustards, they lack frontal vision. Okay, so they cannot see the power lines ahead of them. Okay, and these are very heavy birds. Okay, and because of that, they are not able to change their course in very short distances. Hence, they collide and they die. So the Supreme Court said that the bird diverters have to be installed so that these do not die. So now in the comment section, I'm asking you, where do you find the maximum Great Indian Bustards? And by the way, I will also be covering this separately in high yielding topics when I discuss certain species with you. Okay, so read more about Great Indian Bustard, and those of you who really know about it, mention that in the comment section. Okay, so this is biocentrism. Now related to biocentrism, one more thing. Now I am saying anthropocentrism, right, where man is the main. So again, this ties with the concept of sixth mass extinction. Fine. So we had 5 extinctions before that. This happened because of the natural reasons. Okay, so the earlier 5 extinctions, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, happened because of natural causes. These were a slow and long drawn process. But the 6th mass extinction is because of Anthropocene, like it is known as Anthropocene epoch. Okay, Anthropocene epoch. Here, because of increased intervention of humans, the accelerated extinction is happening. This is sixth mass extinction. In fact, this was also asked by UPSC. So terms like sixth mass extinction, shallow, deep ecology, anthropocentrism, biocentrism, greenwashing, etc. Please make sure that you know these terms. Okay. Next term, ecological amplitude. Again, this term is also related to what we have been discussing so far. In simple terms, let's say you have a species. If you subject that species to a range of temperature, so amplitude is simply the range of temperature in which it can tolerate that temperature. Okay, so some species, for example, will have a huge range of temperature. Okay, and some will have a very narrow range of temperature. Okay, just for our reference. So ecological amplitude simply says that if you subject this species, this is a bell curve, through these temperatures, it will be able to survive. But if you exceed, okay, if you lower the temperature beyond this or increase the temperature beyond this, it will not be able to survive. That is the idea of ecological amplitude. Okay, and we have discussed this ecological amplitude in far greater detail in the prelims crash course. We have seen terms like eco-species, ecads, ecotypes, right, whatnot. We have seen that. If you want to see that in more detail, you can avail the prelims crash course for environment. Fine. So ecological amplitude basically is the range of temperature in which the species is able to withstand the temperature change. Okay, and now why is this important? Simply think of climate change. Okay, now the temperature is rising. Okay, and not all species will respond in the same manner. There are many species, many animals and plants who are cold-blooded. Cold-blooded simply means they will not be able to regulate their internal body temperatures. Now, because of that, they will have these issues. Fine. So, ecological amplitude also from the climate change perspective is very important. Now, dieback was also in the news. Sometimes the term dieback, if it comes, you might not be able to think what it is about. Okay. So, dieback, if you see this, what happens in dieback basically, it is a phenomena when the shoots or the twigs, they die off. Okay. But the root is still present. So here the leaves, etc., as you can see the image, because of, let's say, some issues, for example, let's say some fungus or some disease, basically it is telling about a plant disease. Okay, the dieback. So if the plant dies back, what happens? The leaves, etc., as you can see, they die, but the roots will remain. Okay, and this takes a lot of long time, etc., often for flowering. Now, why was this in news? I'll tell you. This was, one second, yeah, this is of course mentioned in your Samadhan current affairs as well in very detail, dieback, okay, these terms, etc. But basically it was a disease, okay, which was posing threat to the neem trees. One, it was caused by a fungus, okay, even the name of it is mentioned here, okay, which is Phomphis azadi rakhte, that was that fungus, etc. It was affecting the leaves, twigs, etc. of neem trees of all the ages, okay, and the fruit production, etc., was severely impacted by it. Okay, so if you want to read in more detail, I've added this snapshot here. You can perhaps pause this lecture, you can see that. Fine. And in general, you can read about the medicinal property of neem trees, okay, which helps in many cases. That is also one thing that one can understand. But dieback as a single one-liner can also come. That dieback, maybe to confuse you, they can say that this was seen in international relations or in defense or something like that. Okay, so dieback is basically related to, in general, roughly trees and plants, but in current affairs, it was related to the neem trees in Dehradun and in parts of Telangana. Okay, so that was there. Okay, this is dieback. Now, few more terms for us. One is bioconcentration. Okay, and then we'll see what is bioaccumulation and what is biomagnification. Bioconcentration, if you see this image also, this is the fish. Okay, so here what is happening? Intake of chemical contamination. Now let's say the water is polluted, let's say with pesticides or some other chemical pollutant. So now we know that fish is breathing through its gills, right? So when it does, okay, or in the like skin tissues, so whatever through the respiration, etc., whatever the chemical contamination enters the body, that is known as bioconcentration. Okay, bioconcentration is the intake of chemical contamination, etc., in the fish, in its outer, or through its skin or these organisms, right, mechanism. Okay, so here the pesticides they enter directly from the water through the gills, through where it breathes. Fine. So this term is known as bioconcentration. And then there are two more terms. So these three terms you should always know when you're thinking of marine ecology. Second is bioaccumulation, and third is biomagnification. Okay, so bioaccumulation, if you see the image very carefully, you have a set of, let's say, whales. Over a period of time, the pollutant in that set of whales is increasing. So bioaccumulation talks of, let's say, a species over a period of time. You have a species over a period of time, and in that the pollutant is increasing. What is the difference in biomagnification? In magnification, the set of species is changing, which means biomagnification talks about different trophic levels. So you have different trophic levels. Let's say you have zooplanktons eaten up by small fish, eaten up by a large whale, eaten up by, let's say, a bear. Okay, so the trophic levels are changing, and the pollutant will biomagnify. It will magnify in its concentration. Fine. So bioaccumulation across a single set of species, biomagnification across different set of species. And this is where your DDT or the different persistent organic pollutants come into being. I told you. Okay, so when we discuss dirty dozen, we discussed there are persistent organic pollutants taken care of by the Stockholm Convention. Okay, so because these pollutants tend to magnify over a period of time, hence they become extremely dangerous. So that is also one thing you need to know. So bioaccumulation, biomagnification, both these terms you need to understand, including the term bioconcentration. Fine. Now one more term, phytoremediation. In the last lecture, we had seen a term known as bioventing. I told you then, I will be discussing now bioremediation also. So one term is phytoremediation. Okay, so it simply means whenever you see the word phyto means plants. Okay, remediation is simply the process of treating or managing the wastes or the pollutant. So if you manage or treat the wastes or the pollutants through plants, it is known as phytoremediation. Then what is bioremediation? Bio means biological. So if you use microorganisms or microbes to treat the pollutants, that is bioremediation. Okay, so phytoremediation, you can have similar terms other like phytodegradation, which means degradation of pollutants through plants. Okay, phytovolatilization. Okay, so here you have metals or heavy metals which are very toxic in nature. Through the use of plants, I will make them less toxic. Okay, so the word phyto is a giveaway. Okay, these are all under remediation. Okay, so phytostabilization, again here you will make the metals or the toxicity, you want to reduce it, you want to make it stable utilizing the different plants that is there. Okay, so these are few terms: phytodegradation, phytovolatilization, phytostabilization, phytofiltration. Again, filtration of what? Let's say you have a lot of sediment based, or let's say water which is very impure, so even that can be filtered using plants. So that is known as phytofiltration, right? Now because we have discussed this, the second term is bioremediation. Remediation, bio means biological, and this is the way of treating the waste or the pollutants. Now let's see, this is a ship and there has been a big oil spill. How can we treat that? So oil spills can be treated through bioremediation. We can have specific bacteria which treats this. So there is oil zapper, there is oilivorous S. So two sets of examples can be in case of oil spills. One is oil zapper and one is oilivorous S. Okay, these are bacteria which work on this, let's say, oil spills, and it takes care of that. Fine. And the last term of the lecture, this is fairly very easy to understand. This is gross environment product. We usually talk of gross domestic product, okay, which basically talks about the economic activities, right? Now, the GDP ignores the ecosystem services, okay? Ecosystem services can be many, like the regulating services, like provisioning services, right? Supporting services and so on. So, gross environment product basically is an effort or an initiative to recognize the environmental effects. Okay, so there are, for example, there are different environmental and disaster management properties. For example, flood retention. For example, on a coast, if you have mangroves, so if you have a sea storm, etc., or if you have floods, the floods will be stopped to a certain extent. Fine. So why don't we also account that in our GDP calculations? So GEP, gross environment product, is that like idea or that thing in which we want to incorporate the effects of environment into our calculations. Uttarakhand has now become the first state in India to adopt this, so they are working on that. Fine. So this is gross environment product. Additionally, Uttarakhand has been in news because of environment. Why? Because India's first lichens park is also in Uttarakhand. Second, India's first cryptogamic garden is also in Uttarakhand, basically in Dehradun. Okay, so three things because of which Uttarakhand is in news. One is gross environment product, one is lichens park, and third is the cryptogamic garden in Dehradun. Fine. So this is also something we need to know. So state specific initiatives also, right? And other than that, for every theme and to have a very comprehensive understanding of prelims from the environment, and if you want to cover that in some, let's say 25-30 odd hours in very comprehensive manner, in one go you will have the access to all these lectures, and you will also have these accompanying notes alongside, so that your preparation, you feel a fullness with it. Fine. So let me recap what all we have done so far in this part 2. So we had seen a lot of terms. We started the lecture with Winterkill. Okay, then we saw what is ghost fishing, what is cloud forest, what is microforest. Then we saw Yadari model, we saw Trophic Cascade. Okay, we saw shallow and deep ecology, we saw biocentrism as a principle, mass extinctions, ecological amplitude, dieback. Okay, we saw bioconcentration, bioaccumulation, biomagnification, phytoremediation, bioremediation, oil spills, etc. And we ended the discussion with gross environment product, right? So I hope you have found this lecture useful. So combined in these two lectures, we have discussed more than 25 terms, right? Now I will meet you in the third part of this high yielding series of terminologies from environment perspective. Okay, so keep it till then. Please make good set of notes and keep on revising. All the very best. Thank you.